everybody. Welcome back to yet another edition of the I Prefer the 80s and 90s Sport Podcast. We are approaching, or we might even have passed our 100 episodes, so we're going to lie and say this is our 99th episode. We're very proud that we continue to do this, aspire to keep my dream alive of being a national syndicated talk show host, and hopefully someday make that true soon. Today's topic is a tough topic to talk about because I'm in two minds about it. Because a part of me agrees with today, but a part of me doesn't. In 1991, I was going to Connecticut School of Broadcasting, and I was staying with a family in Old Lyme, Connecticut. Jeff and Pam, Hal, Warwick took me in and really got involved with me going to broadcasting school. They helped me prepare my assignments. They helped me talk things out in terms of my assignments. And it was very cool, and I always loved them for that. And we miss Jeff very much. One of the debates that Jeff and I had was about whether or not college athletes should be paid. And of course, I was all caught up in the whole movement of athletes at that time. There was no get paid movement. I was just caught up in the sport at that time of how great teams were. UNLV, Duke were such basketball juggernauts. It was Miami and Alabama, I believe, played in the championship game in college football. Gene Stallings was the coach for Alabama. It was a festive time for college sports. And I was like, yeah, athletes should be paid, man. They bring in millions of dollars to the schools, and without the athletes, schools wouldn't have certain programs, and they wouldn't have this, and they wouldn't have that. So yeah, universities, remember I say that phrase, universities, colleges should pay the athletes for what they have done for the university. And Jeff would come back and say, but what about the concert pianists? What about people who bring grants to universities that help the university's programs? And basically, my response was simply made me scratch my head and say, well, you're right. They bring in these things, but they don't bring in as much money as athletes. Athletes bring in money that possibly helps these grants as well. And he pointed out, well, it's two separate entities, and most of the monies that universities get go directly to athletic departments and do get spread across the university in certain ways. And this argument made me think, and I've thought about that argument for over 30 years. Because do I believe college athletes should be paid? I think they should be paid by the university, not by Billy Joe Bob Booster, not by Taco Bell, not by McDonald's, not by whoever. That has nothing to do with the universities. Because you create a system. So here is my problem, and it's evolved over the years. Here's my problem. My problem has always been that athletes do bring in money to school. And if you pay the athletes, then you got to figure out, well, who gets paid what? And if you had a universal pay plan for the whole athletic department, at some point someone would say it's not right because basketball and football bring in more money than tennis, and wrestling or lacrosse. But athletes still get paid. Now, everyone's argument has always been back to me that if you're old enough to die for the country at 18, you should be old enough to earn a living, whatever that living should be. I got nothing to say back to that. But NCAA put rules so that boosters would not influence kids to go to their schools because it gets out of hand. Boosters promise parents jobs, houses, gives them a shoebox full of money. We all saw the movie Blue Chips that came out, I believe, in 1991. Might have been a little later than that. But my point simply is, I thought it would be a universal system where athletes would get paid the same. Didn't care about the star system. Athletes all get paid the same. But see, that couldn't work because there's Division One, there's Division 1A, AA, there's Division 2, Division 3, and those kids don't bring in the revenues that Division 1 kids bring in, or some schools Division 1 in football, but only one, but not in basketball, or vice versa. UMass, my college for years, was not 1A football. It was 1AA in football. And those kids ran amok across the town like they owned the town. They did own the town. But my point simply was I felt that if it was a universal plan, it would work. And so yesterday I'm watching my favorite show, one of my favorite shows, and one of the pundits said that apparently a senator from West Virginia was talking about how he's having a hard time having sympathy for college athletes today, since college athletes now are making more money than possibly the highest paid state officials. And it's kind of gotten crazy. And then he went on to say how for years that schools made money off likenesses of college athletes, their jersey sales, video game companies. Everyone keeps bringing that stuff up. And I laugh about it because essentially the university jersey sales, the video game sales and stuff like that are owned, I believe at the time, by the university. And we had college athletes in the 90s and 2000s and the 80s get in trouble for selling their jerseys and, having them have to be suspended for games or whatever. And it's funny because not every college university has jerseys that has the name of its player on its back. And in a lot of ways, legally, that is what protects the university. Because just because you wear number 80 doesn't have your name on it, so it's not your number 80. But the kids will argue that it is my number 80 because it has my number. And so I was thinking about this morning. Syracuse gives out number 44 to its best football player on offense in honor of Ernie Davis and, of course, Jim Brown. And they give out number 44 in celebration of them and their legacies. And so I'm thinking to myself, so at Syracuse, if you buy a number 44 jersey at the store, it doesn't say Brown, it doesn't say Davis, it doesn't say Conrad, like it does. I mean, and maybe it did. I don't know. I've never seen it. It's always been no name on the back. But how are you using someone's likeness and image if the number is not them? USC has retired OJ's number. They retired Mac Liner's number. They retired Reggie Bush's number. No one has ever worn 5, 11, 32. Marcus Allen's number, I haven't seen anyone wear 33. I can understand why, if they said, well, they're using the number, I can understand because it's their number. But in college, Penn State, there's no names on the back. Alabama, there's no names on the back. Most colleges don't have the names on the back of the jersey. So how can you claim it to be your name, your likeness, when it could have been anybody's? But these days in college football, it's the wild, 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 wild west. I mean, for example, college basketball players, college football players are in Wendy's commercials, Under Armour commercials, McDonald's commercials. They're everywhere. And they're getting paid money. And they're getting paid so much money that college athletes are like, some of them are saying basically, do I want to go pro or do I want to stay in college, take golf as a class and get $25,000, get $50,000 just for saying the Whopper beat the Big Mac, or drive Buick, or dribbling a basketball and you don't say anything because the voiceover is doing all the work for you. And essentially, I'll give you an example of what I mean. Last season in college basketball player named Drew Timme. Drew Timme has been a first-team All-American more than one occasion in college basketball. So we assume that he's going to be a draft pick in the NBA. Guess what? Drew Timme said, you know what? I'm not going to go to the pros. I'm going to stay in college. I like college. I'm having fun in college. I want to win a national championship. And unfortunately, he didn't get that done. And also, he didn't get drafted. He had to go to an NBA team, hopefully get a phone call from somebody and say, come work out with us. You know, we'll give you a tryout and make an NBA roster. There's a player in college basketball now named Zach Edey. He's 7'6". He didn't go pro. He didn't go pro because people say, well, he's big, he's got great touch. But in today's NBA, the big man is obsolete. And so he may not be a good pro because he doesn't have the lateral quickness to cover screening roles or defend or possibly even do well on offense. And bottom line, Zach Edey was like, all right, I'll go back to college for another year because in West Lafayette, Indiana, maybe he's got deals. Maybe he's got a deal with the car dealership, the local restaurant, the local bowling alley, the local pizza place. So he didn't have to worry about anything. You got to probably pay no rent. You got to probably pay only his cell phone bill, which he probably has a deal with the cell phone company. And so Joe Manchin's point is kind of my old point in that college athletes are professional athletes, basically. And they're just using the university for a place to live. This is Armando Bacot last year for North Carolina. Bacot has been, he was a preseason All-American candidate. For years, they've been saying that he's going to be a draft pick, a first-round draft pick. And maybe his people found out, no, you're not going first round, bro, because you can't shoot threes. You don't make free throws. And so he's like, all right, well, I'll stay in college and have more fun. I'll take leisure studies and do my thing. And that's exactly what he's doing. Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark set the world afire last year. She was college basketball player of the year, led her team to the championship game. They got beaten by LSU. She had a chance to go to the WNBA. She's like, nah, homie, I'm staying in school. Why would she stay in school? Get that money. Now, people say, wait a minute, Richard. They'll make more money in the pros. That is true. But there's a difference from being big man, big woman on campus than being bench warmer in the NBA, sideline dweller in the NFL, carrying somebody else's helmet, getting the luggage set up, getting donuts for your team. Huge difference. You go from being the queen, the king, to a pawn. Unless you are super, super good, that they're going to play you right away. In Caitlin Clark's case, she probably would play right away. But she's so impactful, quote unquote, that the Bidens was like, you know what? Miss Biden, Jill Biden was like, we want to invite Iowa to the White House, which angered everybody of color because they was like, wait a minute, they didn't win the championship. They don't get to go to the White House. We won the championship. LSU won their championship. And so Caitlin Clark really should have gone pro because she can't get no higher than that. But I'm sure what she didn't go pro is what she saw Paige Bucher do. Paige Bucher, who hasn't played in 2 years a full season because of knee injuries, she was the freshman of the year in the nation, All-American 3 years ago. Paige has got commercials on TV, national commercials on TV, national money, get them residual checks. And so she stayed in school. She stayed in school instead of potentially getting drafted by a team and rehabbing with a professional team. UConn is technically a professional team. So she stayed in school and now she's going to try and play this season and lead the Huskies to the promised land. To make that money. And so you see why I'm in two minds. I'm in two minds because, yeah, okay, college athletes should be paid, I think, but I don't think they should be getting money that is not affiliated with the university. But I always say this, if the money is out there to be made, go make the money. If someone says and it's legal to do, go make the money. And that's what they're doing. And so now Congress is trying to decide whether or not it's wise to do this. Because now we're hearing stories that we never heard before, even though we knew existed, where schools are making efforts to get the kids to go to their schools. The rumor is that the Manning's nephew, who's now at the University of Texas, supposedly Texas paid like $2 million to sponsor a visit for him at Texas, hotels, and the whole nine. I don't know what you can pay $2 million for. I mean, he's a Manning. And which leads to the other thing, too. There's so many kids now in college sports that are sons and daughters of former professional athletes, actors, actresses that already have money. Deion Sanders' kid, they said, bought a Bentley the other day, or 2 weeks ago. And he's got national commercials to go along with it. His father is a wealthy, former, great, super great Hall of Fame athlete, taking a job as a head coach at the HBCU College Jackson State. That wasn't like a pay thing. That was a love of football thing. But the Sanders have money. I just saw yesterday that Patrick Ewing's daughter just accepted a scholarship to play volleyball somewhere. Patrick Ewing's got money. You see all the names. Patrick Surtain Jr. played at Alabama or LSU, one of those schools. I think it was Alabama. A whole bunch of kids played in college football after their famous fathers did, mothers did track and field, all getting paid now. They don't need the money, they got money. But the money's there to make it. And so I wonder what Jeff Howe would say today. I think Jeff would come on my side and say that he thinks possibly that the university should pay the students, not the Wild Wild West. But I think he'd also would understand why these kids are taking the money, because it's there to be taken. And there's nothing wrong with free money. I'm really happy.